So what do you do when intimacy and connection in your marriage starts to fade? How can you rekindle that spark? Or better yet, keep it burning strong? In this episode, we'll talk about practical and biblical ways to nurture intimacy in all its forms. When you intentionally protect and prioritize closeness with your spouse, you not only build a marriage you truly enjoy, but you also guard your relationship against the dangers of emotional affairs. Communication is the number one issue for couples, and the real problem is breakdown. But it doesn't have to stay that way. With our Fix Your Communication Breakdowns bundle, you'll get 3 powerful tools valued at $50 for a donation of any amount to Awesome Marriage. Don't miss this chance to stop the fights, grow your understanding, and strengthen your marriage. Act now. The offer ends October 31st. Just click the link in the show notes. Well, welcome to today's Awesome Marriage podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Our topic today is intimacy and connection in marriage. You know, we get a lot of questions on this topic. So today, I'm going to answer your questions. Let's start off with what are the different types of intimacy that you can enjoy in your marriage and why each of them is very, very important. Now, Nancy and I have identified 5 distinct types of intimacy that every strong marriage needs. So think of them as different languages or different languages of connection. Emotional intimacy is where you share your heart, your fears, your dreams, your disappointments, and your joys. It's where you become emotionally naked with your spouse. And it creates that safe space where you can be completely vulnerable with each other. Intellectual intimacy, well, that happens when you engage each other's minds. So you discuss ideas, you share perspectives, and you enjoy meaningful conversations that just go beyond the logistics and the schedules that we all talk about every day. Physical intimacy, and I'm not talking about sex here, it's the non-sexual touch that says, I love you. It's holding hands, it's hugging, it's cuddling on the couch. The physical connection that this gives us, that it releases oxytocin and it creates bonding between us and our spouse. Experiential intimacy, well, that's doing life together. It's sharing adventures, creating memories, trying new things as a team. And these shared experiences become part of your love story over time in your marriage. Then there's spiritual intimacy. It's when you connect at the deepest level, sharing your faith journey, praying together, seeking God's will for your marriage. This is where you invite God into the relationship. It's that third strand of your cord. So, what does each matter? Well, if you're missing any one of these, your marriage becomes lopsided. I see couples all the time that have great chemistry, but they can't talk about anything that's meaningful. Or couples who are best friends intellectually, but they haven't touched each other in months. God designed us as whole beings, body, soul, and spirit, and our marriages need to reflect that wholeness. So what happens when physical intimacy is going strong, but you fail to continue to invest in spiritual or emotional intimacy? Well, I think you end up with what I call hollow marriage. It really looks good on the surface, but there's no real depth, no real substance to it. The physical connection becomes mechanical rather than meaningful. Here's what I've noticed in my counseling practice. When couples neglect emotional and spiritual intimacy, their physical relationship often becomes more about physical release than true intimacy. It's like having this beautiful house with no foundation. Eventually, the cracks are going to show. Without emotional intimacy, sex loses its power to truly bond you together. Without spiritual intimacy, you miss out on God's design for marriage, to be a picture of Christ and of the church. The physical act becomes disconnected from the heart and from the soul. I've seen marriages where the couple's having regular sex, but they felt like strangers. They were physically intimate, but emotionally they were distant. That's not God's design. He wants our physical union to be an expression of our emotional, intellectual, and spiritual connection. The danger is when the other intimacies are neglected, one or both spouses start looking elsewhere for emotional or spiritual connection. And that's often how affairs begin. Not with physical attraction, but with unmet emotional needs. Let me say that again. That's often how affairs begin. Not with physical attraction, but with unmet emotional needs. If the intimacy has faded, why does focusing on the intimacy outside the bedroom need to be the place you start? Well, because true sexual intimacy flows from the other intimacies, not the other way around. I tell couples all the time, your sex life is a thermometer. It's not the thermostat. It reflects the health of your overall relationship. Think about it this way. If you and your spouse haven't had a meaningful conversation in weeks, if you're not emotionally connected, if you're not touching outside the bedroom, then jumping straight into physical intimacy feels forced and feels artificial. Starting outside the bedroom also removes the pressure. When couples are struggling sexually, often there's anxiety and performance pressure, and that makes things worse. But everyone can start with a hug, a meaningful conversation, or just holding hands while you're praying together. From a biblical perspective, Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 7 not to deprive each other, but he also talks about the importance of being united in heart and spirit. The Song of Solomon shows us that the best sexual intimacy comes from couples who are emotionally and spiritually connected first. Practically speaking, this approach works because it rebuilds trust and safety. When your spouse knows you want to connect with them as a whole person, not just sexually, it creates the emotional safety that's necessary for true intimacy to flourish. So, next question. How common are emotional affairs in the marriages you work with? Well, sadly, they're becoming increasingly common. I'd say in my practice, I encounter emotional affairs maybe in about 40% of struggling marriages. That's just the ones that are discovered or admitted to. The rise of social media and workplace friendships has created more opportunities for these connections to develop. People are spending more time texting, messaging, and having deep conversations with people who aren't their spouse. So what's particularly concerning for me is how many people don't realize they're in an emotional affair until it's already progressed significantly. They tell themselves we're just friends or we work together. So of course we talk a lot. What's the one piece of wisdom you'd give couples listening to safeguard against that kind of damage? Well, guard your heart and guard your marriage like your life depends on it, because your marriage does. The most dangerous thing you can do is think, it can never happen to me. I've counseled pastors, church leaders, and couples who are absolutely convinced they were affair-proof. Pride, what comes before the fall? So here's my practical advice. If you wouldn't say it, do it, or share it with your spouse present, don't do it. That's your boundary. If you're having conversations or sharing emotions with someone else that you're not sharing with your spouse, you are heading into dangerous territory. And please, prioritize your marriage over your friendships. I don't care how long you've known that person or how innocent it seems, your marriage covenant comes first. Always. So how do you know if you're having an emotional affair? Well, ask yourself these questions. Are you sharing thoughts and feelings with this person that you're not sharing with your spouse? Do you look forward to talking to this person more than talking to your spouse? Are you being secretive about your communications or your relationship with this person? Do you find yourself comparing this person favorably to your spouse? Would you be comfortable if your spouse read all your communication with this person? Are you emotionally depending on this person for support instead of your spouse? So if you answered yes to any of these, you need to step back immediately. The fact that you're even wondering is probably a red flag. Another key indicator, if this relationship is meeting emotional needs that should be met in your marriage, that's problematic. God designed our marriage to be the primary source of intimate, emotional connection in your life. Why are emotional affairs just as detrimental to a marriage as physical affairs? Well, because they violate the same covenant commitment. When you got married, you didn't just promise to be physically faithful, you promised to give your heart to your spouse. In many ways, emotional affairs can be more damaging because they involve the heart and the mind and not just the body. Physical affairs can sometimes be about momentary weaknesses or poor choices, but emotional affairs, they represent a sustained investment of your most intimate self in someone else. I've seen couples recover from one-night stands more easily than from emotional affairs because the betrayed spouse knows their partner gave their heart to somebody else. And that cuts deeper than physical betrayal for many people. Plus, emotional affairs often last longer and involve more deception. Physical affairs tend to be discovered more quickly, but emotional affairs can go on for months or years, with the unfaithful spouse lying daily about their true feelings and connections. From a biblical standpoint, Jesus said that adultery begins in the heart, Matthew 5:28. God cares about the condition of our hearts, not just our actions. So what are 3 tangible ways to protect against having an emotional affair? Well, first, be transparent with your spouse about all your friendships, all your communications. Share your phone, your social media, your work relationships. If you have nothing to hide, hiding nothing should be easy. Second, invest more emotional energy in your spouse than in any friendship. Make sure your spouse is the first person you want to talk to about your day, your struggles, your victories. They should be your primary emotional confidant. And third, establish clear boundaries and stick to them. Don't have one-on-one meals with members of the opposite sex. Don't share personal problems or marriage issues with someone who isn't your spouse or a counselor. Don't engage in flirtatious behavior, even if it seems harmless. You know, Nancy and I have a rule. We don't do anything or go anywhere that we would be uncomfortable doing if the other person was there. That served us well for over 50 years of marriage. If you suspect your spouse is having an emotional affair or is in a position where they aren't protecting against one like they should, how do you have that first conversation with them about it? Well, first pray about it. Ask God for wisdom, timing, and the right heart attitude. Don't approach this conversation in anger or accusation. Then speak the truth in love. Use I statements instead of you statements because they're more like accusations. Say something like, I've noticed you seem really connected to whatever that person's name is, and I'm feeling concerned about our marriage. Can we talk about it? Be specific about what you've observed without being accusatory. Like, I've noticed you light up when you get texts from that person, or I feel like you're sharing more with them than you are with me lately. And give them a chance to respond and explain. They may not realize how their behavior looks or feels to you, but also trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. And more importantly, focus the conversation on what you need for your marriage to feel safe and strong. Instead of just pointing out problems, suggest solutions. I'd love for us to spend more time talking like we used to, or could we work on being more emotionally connected? How does God's design for intimacy guide the way we invest in each other as husband and wife? God's design for marriage is profound. He uses us as a picture of Christ's relationship with the church. That means our intimacy should reflect sacrificial love, covenant commitment, and spiritual unity. In Genesis, we see that God said it's not good for man to be alone, so he created a helper for him. The word suitable means corresponding to, like two puzzle pieces that fit perfectly together. Our intimacy should reflect that complementary design. Ephesians 5 tells husbands to love their wives as Christ loved the church. That's sacrificially. It's unconditionally. It tells wives to respect their husbands as the church respects Christ. And that creates a beautiful dance of love and respect that enhances the intimacy between the two of you. Song of Solomon shows us that God celebrates passionate love between husband and wife. Physical intimacy isn't just for procreation, it's for pleasure, it's for bonding, and it's for expressing covenant love. But here's the key. God's design always puts the marriage relationship second only to our relationship with Him. When we love God first and our spouse second, it actually enhances our ability to love each other well. Protecting your marriage is truly a team effort. People ask me, What are some ways you and Nancy have done this well? Well, we learned that protecting our marriage requires intentional effort from both of us. And so here's some practical ways that we've done this. We prioritize our relationship even in our busiest seasons of ministry and raising kids. We've protected our weekly date nights and our daily connection time. Our marriage comes before everything except our relationship with God. We're completely transparent with each other. Nancy has access to my phone, my email, my schedule, everything. And I've got the same access to hers. We don't have secrets or private relationships that exclude the other person. We speak highly of each other, especially in public. You'll never hear either us criticizing the other or making jokes at the expense, but we build each other up. We don't tear each other down. We pray regularly together. Spiritual intimacy has been a cornerstone of our marriage. When we're connected to God together, we're more connected to each other. We deal with conflict quickly and biblically. We don't let the sun go down on our anger, and we've learned to fight for our marriage, not against each other. We invest in our friendship. Nancy's not only my wife, she's my best friend. We enjoy each other's company. We laugh together. We share interests and adventures together. The key is that both of us are committed to doing whatever it takes to protect and strengthen our marriage. It's not 50-50 effort. It's 100-100. We're both all in, and that makes all the difference. All of that, everything we've talked about today, goes together to making an awesome marriage. So thanks for being with me today. Remember, if you have any questions or thoughts about today's podcast, you can contact me always at drkim@awesomemarriage.com. I answer every email. And please don't forget to rate, review, and share our podcast. Share it with your friends. Next Tuesday, Jay Parker returns as my guest, and we're going to dig into her newest book, Confessions of a Higher Desire Life. Wow. We'll see you then.